Hey guys, it's Brett. Thanks for dropping by my channel. So, June wrap up. I'm going to talk to you today about 11 books. Really good month of reading. So I'm excited to get into that. But first, I have a kind of exciting announcement to make. So after planning this for a while and thinking about it, I have launched a cooking show. I have not launched a cooking show. I can barely bake. But I actually have launched, with my friend Jason Blitman, who I met on Instagram, a podcast called Gaze Reading. It is just launched last week, which was June 26th. So the second episode will be coming out this next week. If you're watching this later, there might be a bunch of episodes now for you to watch. It is not a podcast that is strictly for gay people. It's just that it happens to be two gay guys talking about books. We will be talking about a ton of different subjects, as well as having a myriad of author interviews. I'm really excited because we've had some great people on already and some great people scheduled to come on. So if this sounds interesting to you at all, you can either go to gazereading.com. You can also find the podcast on any of the places you get your podcast, whether it's Apple or Spotify or any of the places. So I hope you'll check it out. Let me know what you think. And in the meantime, let's talk about some June books. All right. So like I said, I had 11 books that I read and one that I did not finish, which I don't do that much, but I had to do it with this one. So I'll leave that till the end. So let me start, and I'm going to start with the handful of books. First of all, I really liked all of these. They're all solid, and I would recommend all of these books. But the first 5 were sterling to me and absolutely potentially are going to be on my year-end book list. My next, if not the next vlog that I do, then the following one is going to be about my top 10 picks of the year so far. But that might be in another week or so. It just depends on what I get out next, and I might be doing July reads next, but we'll see. At any rate, who cares? All right. So, reaching over. First book I wanted to talk about was Countries of Origin by Javier Fuentes. This is a debut novel. Absolutely beautiful. It felt to me kind of like a cross between Andre Assman's Call Me By Your Name and the Richard Linklater movies Before Sunrise and Before Sunset. It concerns a young 24-year-old chef. He's a pastry chef who's Spanish, who's an illegal immigrant who has been living in New York City, living with his uncle who brought him to America when he was 8 years old and has been raising him. He is a pastry chef at a very celebrated restaurant, incredibly talented, and through a turn of events, his immigration status gets brought up and he knows he's going to get deported. So he makes the proactive decision to go back to Madrid, which is his homeland. On the plane to Madrid, he is seated next to a young man who is also from Madrid, who is a student at New York University, who had been in New York. And a relationship suddenly develops between the two of them. I don't want to say much more, but it's a great, great book. First of all, the writing is so sensual and so beautiful. It is so atmospheric. It talks a lot about immigration, about class differences, just about sexuality. It's truly a really, really standout, beautiful book. Spoiler alert, we just interviewed him as well for the podcast, and he is really fascinating, Javier. So, highly recommend. All right, the next book is I almost said the Carolyn incident. The Rachel incident by Carolyn O'Donoghue. Loved this book. It's being compared a little bit to Sally Rooney, which I understand. It's set in Cork, Ireland, about a young girl who she's at university. She is working at a university bookstore, and she becomes friends with this new employee named James, who emphatically says that he's straight, but she is like, no way. And so this friendship develops. The book is told through an adult lens, meaning it's Rachel looking back at this time of her life of, graduating from university, going off into the world, setting out in those adventures that you had when you were very young and you were first embarking on the world and all the foibles. There is an incident that happens fairly early in the book that kind of propels the rest of the narrative. So I don't really want to give it away. All I'll say is it's incredibly charming. Carolyn O'Donoghue is just a delight. She is so witty, so smart, and so is her book. If you are a Sally Rooney fan, I would say pick this up. But to me, it also feels very reminiscent of Phoebe Waller-Bridge's Fleabag, and that's what this feels like to me. And if that's something that you like, then I think you would like this as well. So can't recommend this enough. Rachel Incident. Staying in Ireland and moving from Cork to Dublin, Juno Loves Legs by Carl Geary. Take the story that I just gave you and then make it during the Troubles and make it very sad. That is Juno Loves Legs. Never read Carl Geary before. I'm kind of blown away that this man, first of all, the two characters he inhabits are these two outsiders, this very poor girl named Juno and what becomes her best friend Legs, who is queer. This is, in the early 80s in Dublin. So they're both effectively outcasts and the kind of bond that brings them together. It is beautiful writing. Juno, she is telling the story. She's an unforgettable, hard scrabble character. It's rough. I mean, this is for fans of Shuggie Bain. It is right in that wheelhouse, and that's what it is reminiscent of to me. But truly an unforgettable character. Beautiful, heartbreaking story. S.A. Cosby, All the Sinners Bleed. I know I had brought this up before in my previous vlog. I absolutely love this. I think S.A. Cosby is one of the most interesting thriller writers going right now. This has so many components to it about a newly appointed black sheriff in a southern town. Already you have the DNA built in for, an explosive story. When a school shooting happens, which opens the novel in a just, grabs you by the throat, doesn't let go kind of way, the teacher that has been shot, and it's just a teacher that has been shot, is kind of this pillar of the community. Students love him. Parents have all loved him. But it turns out that there was much more to him than met the eye. Not only that, but seemingly connected to this is a serial killer who is loose and taunting the sheriff. It's really fantastic. As you can tell, it's pretty dark, but I absolutely loved it. I was saying one of the things I learned through my reading in June was I really generate to a lot of dark shit stories, and this is dark, but I thought it was fantastic. So there you go. Moving in a completely different direction, something that is completely heartwarming is Stephen Rowley's The Celebrants. I love Stephen Rowley, was such a massive fan of The Guncle and had to have given that book to so many people. And if you haven't read The Guncle, I would highly recommend it. This is his latest book, which was also a Read with Jenna pick, about a group of college friends who one of their group dies, and at the start of the novel. And they all make a pact to each other, effectively saying when they go out in their life and they're having a low time, they can call on each other to get together to have a living funeral for them. The reason is they never want to forget and want to be reminded of how great their life actually is and how great they are. So it follows these characters over the next several years, decades actually, and what happens between the four of them. It's complete Stephen Rowley in terms of it's funny, it's touching, it will probably bring a tear to your eye. He seems to be one of the leading writers right now who know how to straddle the lines between humor and grief, and he does it really, really well. So I totally would recommend. Samantha Irby, she is so damn funny. Quietly Hostile is her latest book of essays. I discovered Samantha Irby during lockdown because I saw it come up on Instagram, her first book, and I thought, well, I'll try this out. And I thought she was so funny and immediately snapped up all her others. It's been a little bit since we've had a new book from her. Speaking of the lockdown, one of her essays is about lockdown. She is irreverent. She is balls to the wall. She does not care. She also has a lot of gastro problems, which she recounts in here. So if you are someone who gets easily squeamish around potty humor, or anything to do with waste, this might not be for you. However, for the rest of you, it's hysterical. She has a brilliant sequence on where she breaks down a bunch of Dave Matthews songs, which I thought was so funny. For anybody who's a Sex and the City fan, Samantha Irby actually was a writer. I don't know if she is this current season, but she was a writer on at least the first season of the reboot and Just Like That. So, but she is a Sex and the City super fan and breaks down a lot of the episodes and writes what she would have done had she been a writer of the episode and how she would have changed certain episodes, which is also hilarious. But perhaps my favorite chapter in all of this, being a parent, was how to look cool in front of teens, which I said immediately, based on her assessment, I have failed miserably. So we'll be tearing that section out and stapling it to my eyelids so I know what to do better. But really funny. This is also really funny on audio. She reads it, so would highly recommend. And thank you to Penguin for this. Okay, Best Man by Sidney Carger. Sidney Carger is a screen and television writer predominantly, but so this is his first novel. It is a straight up charming rom-com about a gay guy and his best friend. She is getting married and he is basically going to be her best man and do everything for her to arrange the wedding. His friend's fiance, his best man, is his brother, who is also gay, who is like perfect party planner. And the two men kind of suddenly have an instant rivalry because our lead is concerned, oh my God, he's going to steal my bestie. So this dynamic gets set up right away while this underlying attraction starts to brew. This feels to me like all of those, when we had those influx of all those rom-coms in the late 80s, early 90s, that would have been, starring Cameron Diaz. This feels like that. And I say that in the best way. It's completely fun, great beach read, can put a smile on my face. It is not, it's not too steamy. In fact, there's very little steam. So for those of you who are like, well, I like those, but I don't like too much steam, this will totally be for you. Black Butterflies by Patricia Morris. I read this because this was shortlisted for the Women's Prize. This is about the conflict and fighting in Sarajevo and a family that the husband takes the daughter and gets out, but the wife stays back thinking a conflict is going to be short-lived. She stays back because she has a teaching job. She's an art studio, and she believes, I'll get out if it gets really bad. Well, we know it gets really bad, and she can't get out. And what happens over the course of the next 18 months? Oh my God, I loved this book. I didn't read all of the long list, but had I had to put together a short list, I think this absolutely would have been on the short list. And I would have really been content if this would have won. But I've never read anything by Patricia Morris. In fact, I think this is her debut. But a beautiful, beautiful book, which she based a lot of the experiences in here on her, I believe it's her grandfather who got out of Sarajevo. So really worth your time, really worth reading. It's quick, it's short chapters. It's, it reads quickly just because of the conflict. It almost reads like a thriller at times, but I thought it was great. The other book that I read that was from the short list is Fire Rush by Jacqueline Crooks. I would highly recommend, if you haven't read this and want to pick this up on audio. The reader is simply fantastic. This is set in the underground scene of London, the underground reggae scene, and a woman who's kind of coming of age in that environment. When a police brutality happens and kills someone that she's very close to, it kind of galvanizes her and gets her involved in kind of the protest movement. Really interesting. Again, I have to just give a shout out to this whole group of authors who are put on the Women's Prize shortlist. And this is one of the reasons why I like these book prize lists anyway, because even if I don't read anything, I have to say they're always coming up with the most interesting authors, people I never on my own would have ever discovered, just taking me to places I never would have imagined going. So I really thought this was really interesting. But again, like I had a next level experience because of the audio, and I would recommend it. Okay. Almost done, guys. I think it's summer, so it's just marriage season. Byron Lane's Big Gay Wedding. Byron Lane wrote a book a few years ago called A Star's Board, which I just loved, which was based on his experience, fictionalized, but based on his experience when he was Carrie Fisher's personal assistant. If you haven't read it, it's fantastic. I really wish they would have made it a movie and had Meryl Streep play the role and can kind of continue the Postcards from the Edge thing. His latest book is about a gay couple, one of which is his mother lives in rural Louisiana, and the guys decide, who are from New York, they are going to have the wedding there, and the kind of mayhem that ensues. I liked this a lot. It's very sweet, and I think it's a total crowd pleaser. I was in a group on Instagram that was reading this together, and people were loving it. I liked it a lot. I appreciated everything it's doing. I think it sends such a positive message, and it's less about the two guys to me and more about the mother and her kind of evolution in regards to her son and her feelings about him being gay than it really is about the guys. So I appreciate everything that Byron Lane is doing with the book. Did I love it? No, but did I like it a lot? Yeah. And do I think a lot of people would like this? And do I think it's a great summer book? Absolutely. Okay, the last book is Farrell Covington and the Limits of Style by Paul Rudnick. I am a big Paul Rudnick fan. Last year or the year before, he wrote this book called Playing the Palace, which I loved, which I think I've talked about before. It didn't get as much buzz as I thought it would have because of a little tiny book called Red, White, and Royal Blue, which was slightly similar, but not. But I think enough that people, for whatever reason, didn't discover the Rudnick. I would highly recommend that. And again, if you pick up Playing the Palace, check out the audio. Michael Urie, one of the stars of Shrinking, Michael Urie does the audio, and he is phenomenal. Farrell Covington and the Limits of Style. It's an interesting book for Paul Rudnick because I think it has all the tenets of his writing, which by that I mean sharp, witty, well plotted, but there is a kind of gravity and seriousness to some of this. It follows a man who is kind of bookish, Jewish, from upstate New York, who ends up going to, I believe it's Harvard or Princeton, Yale. Pick a very Ivy League school. Yale. He meets this man called Farrell Covington in college who is dynamic, charming, and fabulously wealthy, like just googobs of money. Comes from a very, very wealthy, conservative family. The book then tracks the relationship over the next 40 years. So it's fascinating because it starts in the 70s and it's kind of like a timepiece. And so it covers a lot of ground, both textually and geographically, as we follow these two men as they go in and out of each other's lives over the year. It's really, really, really good. There were points when I wished it was, and it was probably just me, a little tighter. It slowed down at some points, but I would totally recommend this. I thought it was completely engaging. Really liked. My one DNF for the month. Drowning by T.J. Newman. I know people are loving this. I didn't read her previous book, Falling, but I was sent this, and thank you to Avid Reader Press for this. It just wasn't for me. I started it. I started reading it. It was on Scribd on audio, and I was in the car with my husband the one day, and we started listening together, and he just looked at me and he's like, this is terrible. And I couldn't disagree. So it just felt a little cheesy to me. It feels like it's it's tailor-made to be a movie or a TV show with Idris Elba on Apple TV called Hijacked. But anyway, so you can let me know what you thought. A lot of people have been like, it's fun, and I'm sure, but it just wasn't for me. So I'll stop belaboring that. Okay, so that's it. 11 books. If there's any of these that you've read, please let me know. Or if any of them look interesting to you, please let me know. Or if I can answer any questions of them or anything like that, let me know in the comments below. As always, if you like what you've seen, like and subscribe. Thank you guys. I hope you're having a great weekend, wherever you are, whatever day, whatever time of the year. And I will see you all soon. Thanks.